Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gornoski, and our subject today is the matter of Trump and the persecution of Trump. I've long talked about how the more they prosecute and persecute Trump, the more powerful he becomes narratively, the more powerful he becomes in terms of his aura in a Christ-haunted society that we live in. In our society today, we have what I call the Cornerstone Effect, which is deriving from the Bible when it talks about the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone, meaning Christ being rejected by man and all of his power and culture making sensibilities. In the rejection of Christ, he becomes the cornerstone, becoming the most important, irresistible force in all of history. To this day, the whole world bends to the reality that Christ left on the cross. That's why all power structures, all societies of sociopaths and psychopaths, they can only gain their power and leverage and control and manipulation by pretending ever more precariously to present themselves as in the name of martyrs, in the name of victims. This is what we see unfolding in our time today. That which is perceived to be close to being a victim, that which is most considered to be unfairly marginalized, gains power. That's the effect of the cross in society on a culture-making level. It unravels the ability of power structures to maintain their control over the narratives. Narratives are ultimately governed by might makes right, and the power systems, because they are infected with Christian sensibility, that the last shall be first and the first shall be last, that God desires mercy, not sacrifice, that God is found on the side of Christ, left outside of the camp, left abandoned and rejected, spurned by envy and covetousness for his power, spurned because he offered the path of nonviolence. That is where God stands. He stands in solidarity of anyone that looks, whether it's true or perceived, sometimes it's not true, to be a scapegoat. So the scapegoat power of Trump is what we see unfolding in the headlines today. And I want to break down particularly how Trump will end up destroying the power of our justice system and its corruption, and the power of the prison industrial complex. This is going to be a monumental moment in history that you're seeing happen as we speak. And the reason why Trump will do so is because his story is uniquely situated to do just that. Having spent time in the Holy of Holy seats in terms of our state religion, he sat in the White House. That's the role of the high priest, the avatar, the symbol of the people. He was a part of that. So he was a chosen member of the Holy of Holy high priests of our society by being one of the elite numbers of presidents that we've had. And with it, he ruined so much of the aura and so much of the sacrificial kind of aura that hides behind the veneer of civility and dignity and decency that presidential politics have long held to maintain their dirty grasp on power. Now, because he is not afraid to reveal the violence behind power, not necessarily in some kind of prophetic sense, but simply because he is not wired in the same way that a lot of those folks are. He's willing to wear his his mimetic rivalry, his mimetic resentments, his ego. He's willing to wear it on his sleeve in a kind of direct and more honest way than the rest of the politicians. If he has a sociopathy, the reason why his sociopathy is impervious to being defeated compared to all other politicians is that all other politicians are constantly trying to use very fake, cheap rhetorical tricks called political rhetoric to hide their own self-serving desires. Trump, on the other hand, lets you know very clearly that while he's doing it for his cause, he's also in it for his own petty rivalries, for his own revenge. And that's something that no other politician talks about. Obama doesn't do it, and yes, he was filled with revenge for his different political opponents. Even the ones that want to pretend to be like Trump, Kerry Lake and all these other folks, they try to emulate the brash talk of Trump without the spirit of courage and confidence to wear their sociopathy on their sleeve. They're still trying to hide it within this little slick political packaging, which is why they still get taken down by scandals that are half as scandalous as scandals that Trump slides right through. Now, this is the destruction of the state as we see it. It will not maintain its monopolistic power. It will, and you see this happening all around us. The institutions around the state, its allies in the media, its allies in entertainment are all coming undone because of this apocalyptic moment of Trump's ascension into the White House, and now this continual prosecution and persecution of Trump as he tries to go back. The best thing that could happen to Trump's movement and Trump's, if he wants to have cultural power, is for him to go to prison. And in fact, he's intuited that himself by saying in his own way, well, if you want to make me a Nelson Mandela, go ahead. I'll embrace it. I'll get more support. He's figured it out on his own intuitive level how this dynamic works. Now, when I speak of these matters, I'm not talking from the low-level, dumb, he's either evil or good, and therefore we have to fit, within that dumb binary. If you've come to this program looking for dumb binaries, I'm sorry. There's 10 million generic programs out there. In fact, every other program I've encountered is stuck on the dumb binary on all these topics, including Trump. You're either supposed to think he's the greatest hero of all time, or you're supposed to, think of him as a vulgar character, and then the evil, the evil labels of him continue on from there. But I don't care. I'm beyond that. And the way we're analyzing this, we're looking at this anthropologically. We're looking at this from the framework of watching our culture change right before our eyes because of the rapid advancement of media technology. And so that's what we see with this story of Trump. So first of all, I want to kind of refresh why I think he's going to destroy the aura of the justice system and the prison system. Let's talk about some of the things that he's already destroyed the aura of. I remember when he was running for president in 2016, they had the Access Hollywood tape leak. That was supposed to be, no other politician had had such a, egregious. I remember George W. Bush, on the eve of the 2004 election had this, speeding ticket of being DUI come out from years ago. And that was supposed to sink his candidacy, and it didn't. But this Access Hollywood tape was even more extreme and insane in terms of its vulgarity in relationship to what other politicians had been exposed in the public square at this late in the game for a presidential election. This is beyond what they had. And he passed through it. He beat it. He beat the scandal, and he won anyways, even with party abandonment right at the eve of the election. The party leaders distancing themselves from him. He still won. This is unheard of. Most of these politicians are very fragile in terms of brand power because they play the game of using clean speech to try to hide the vain vulgarity of political statecraft. Trump doesn't. Trump speaks the unspoken part of politics out loud. That's why when all the other politicians were saying, we go to the Middle East to spread democracy, Trump was always saying, well, why don't we get the oil if we're going to go to these stupid wars? We just take their stuff. He's talking, you're not supposed to say that. All those other politicians do that. Mitt Romney was a complete handmaiden to any psychopathic scoundrel that wanted to steal resources in all the countries that he voted to go to war against. But he didn't speak the vulgarity out loud. He didn't say, oh, I'm blackmailed, that's why I'm doing this. Or, I'm, just a sociopath that wants attention, and I'm the greatest person ever lived, or we should just take the resources and imperially take over these countries if we're going to spend the time and money and treasure and lives going after their, resources. Romney and all those other generic dime a dozen, Obama, they're all the same. They all played the political veneer of using clean speech to hide the vulgarity of the violence of the state. Trump didn't do that, and therefore he broke the aura of the state. It's akin to imagine that the state and all of its political people, this isn't accurate now because, they're all speaking at like a third grade level now, so it's really debased. But in the minds of the target demographic of people who are most going to buy into the illusion of the aura of majesty of, mainstream politics, they feel as if they're watching a Shakespearean play. And then Trump comes on and he's acting like, he's acting like a vaudeville, cartoon, jumping and falling and crashing into the stage and, going after other people, going off script. The other persons are staying on their Shakespearean script and he's going off and poking fun at the other actors. He's ruining the experience that this was some kind of majestic, above the fray, very serious, attempt to do right by people. That's not at all what's going on in DC. DC is a giant money laundering scheme. It's a giant arms and death dealing machine. It's sick. It's decrepit. It's completely corrupt, 1000%. They're surveilling people to harm people. They're filled with people who are neo-Malthusians that do not care about their people at all. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about dignity, honesty, playing fair, telling anything remotely honest or true. There's not a bit of good about what comes out of that city and all of its power and Wall Street and Hollywood and all the other little connected nodes of power that have worked with it through the years. And Trump, because he reveals his own vulgarity and he's able to kind of wear it on his sleeve and wink at the audience of his ego, it scandalized people who are still afraid of their own shadow. And that's why so many people on the left and the right were scandalized and still are scandalized by his persona, because they haven't faced the shadow of their own narcissism of themselves. So him hanging it out and wearing it very proudly is an affront to them, because they've been told that to play by the rules mimetically, you have to pretend to be above the fray from passions and ego. You have to pretend to be for some greater cause in order to be a self-serving sociopath like everybody else, right? He wears it on his sleeves and therefore reveals the shadow of so many people who try to pretend to wear all these garbs of fashionable speech or fashionable rituals and, ideologies and little gimmicks. Everybody's mimetically one-upping each other, trying to play the game. He blows the whole game up for a lot of the people who are true believers in that type of status climbing. So that the Access Hollywood tape, he survives that scandal. He wins the election with everybody against him, both party establishments against him. The money is stacked against him. The media is stacked against him. He wins it, right? Even the party abandoned him. He still wins it. And then he wins the both sides hoax where they try to make it look like he said something he didn't. He says he talks about the S-hole countries, and not trying to use the direct language here on this show. And he survives that one. You're not supposed to say that. That's supposed to be scandalous in a society that, again, is supposed to pretend like it actually cares and that it hates itself. And, that it really, the last thing you can do is point out the differences and quality of life between our country and other countries that don't have what we have. And then to call them blank hole countries is like just rubbing in the face of their differentiation between us and them. And thereby, you're breaking the cardinal rule of politically correct, Christ-haunted politics, which is emphasizing boundaries, differentiation, and preferences, hierarchy, that some countries are better to live in than others. You're not allowed to say or admit any of that in a society that is haunted by the cross and its awakening of our minds towards victims and the plight of victims. We're haunted by the cross, but we're not compliant with what Christ says to do, to take up our cross and recognize the evil in our own selves and repudiate our power structure, hijinks that we do. We try to perpetuate our power by using the aesthetic of the cross to justify it. That's what I mean by a cross-haunted society. He goes through the impeachment, which is a hoax, another one based on, Ukraine arms dealing and all kinds of corrupt blood money deals with the Biden family. He goes through this fabricated coup that, he's supposed to be engineering a coup, we're told, by the stupid TV media and the dumb fake puppets like Bill Maher. And yet they can't even answer, if he was trying to engineer a coup, why did he call up the National Guard and was denied to have National Guard by the Democrats, by Pelosi, to guard the Capitol? If you're trying to engineer a coup, why would you try in advance to put guard there to protect anything from going in a bad direction? Totally stupid. second impeachment, he survives that. Each one of those things were supposed to be fatal in past political contexts. To be impeached was such a stench, such a scapegoat aura to you that you're a dirty, nasty monster. He goes through two of them, still doesn't take out his brand, that because again, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The more he's persecuted, the more other people, his diehard fans, and then other people start to look at it and say, wait a second, this is going too far. And of course, they put a lot of effort into making January 6th the new 9/11, and it's just falling apart because the more you scrutinize their little events they put together, the more you see how much it's fabricated, how much it was intentionally coaxed and pushed and initiated by our own government. We are so queasy about real violence that our state has to literally make up its own cheap Spartacus revolution in order to try to look like it's a victim of the mob. That's how pathetic our state of affairs are in terms of our establishment. They have to pretend to be a victim. Oh my goodness, we're being victimized by this maddened mob, when all the evidence now shows that the police were firing things into the crowd, hurting people, instigating as much as they possibly could, telling them to go into the place and make havoc. All the people that were telling them to go into it, none of them end up really facing any consequences of any kind of significance. The January 6th committee, deletes and destroys their data that they're working from. Totally disgusting, pathetic, low IQ chicanery. And we all see through it. And even the true believers who are not exposed to this, they still feel in the atmosphere that the mimetic consensus that they desperately want, that everybody unite around the fact that this monster is a monster and must be destroyed at all costs. They are so angry that it never happens. In fact, the more they press down on trying to beat him out and expunge him, the more power he gets, because they don't understand anthropology. They don't understand what we teach you on this show. This is the secret. This is the key to understanding society all over the world. This is the key to understanding history. This is the key to understanding culture and politics coming from it. He survives an armed house raid. I mean, again, can you imagine these paper-thin politicians on both sides? Imagine Newt Gingrich getting a house raid. I mean, it would be the end of him. It's like, my gosh, it would destroy him. Anybody, all these politicians getting their home raided with FBI SWAT coming in, ransacking their house. It would be the most scandalous. Oh my goodness, it would destroy them. But it gives him power because, again, he wears the truth by his own persona of will to power. He wears it on his sleeve, and thereby, as he contests for power with those who hide from that honesty of the will to power, he beats them when they do will to power moves. It gives him more legitimacy for his audience. It says, well, you know what? I don't care if he's a bad dude. I don't care if he's a bad guy. He's our bad guy, right? He's the anti-hero. He's the revelation of the steady state of will to power violence, egoism, and narcissism at the heart of the state. And in fact, theirs is in many cases much worse than the things that he's accused of. In terms of the relative, he's supposed to be bringing us to war. Look what brought us to war. Look what this current regime, which is very much, a uniparty, everybody's on consensus. Mike Johnson and Biden very much closer together than Mike Johnson and Trump in terms of all their, allegiances. Trump is not much further past the uniparty, by the way, but it's his aesthetic, it's his narrative that has more power in terms of changing the dynamics of our society, whether he intends to it or not. It has more effect in destroying the kind of mythology of our establishment, whether they like it or not, whether he intends to do it or not. That way, that's what's happening. So you see when his fleet of cars is heading to the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta, you see videos of Black people saying, here comes Trump. Trump showed up. They're laughing and cheering him on because they admire that underdog vibe that a Christ-haunted society elevates. They admire that. So that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with the narratives that they have used to maintain their cool, above the fray legitimacy, that we only prosecute people because of violations of the law. You cannot maintain that and be a sane, intelligent person in civilization. You can't maintain that after you see all these criminal indictments against Trump. And yet we're supposed to believe that, Hillary Clinton and all these other little puppets, Biden, Ashley Biden's diary, all this stuff, that there's never been a crime on any of these guys. They've never committed a crime. But Trump and these tenuous, dumb, desperate cases that are so reaching, like who paid what for who, and it's such tenuous basis of any kind of crime. It's victimless crime nonsense. It's so reaching. And the idea that, oh man, we're just following the law blindly. Even the dumbest worshiper of Trump on the left, and the left does worship Trump because he's their God. He binds them together. He keeps them united. He allows them to stay united in terms of not fracturing into endless rivalries amongst themselves about who's the greatest aggrieved victim. That's what they would fall into without uniting around this fear of this awesome God that they worship, that owns their mind 24/7. They believe in these fantasies that he engineered a coup that he was about to stop by trying to put the National Guard, and yet he was stopped from doing that. I mean, how stupid could you possibly be? You can't be that dumb intentionally. These people are warped and corrupted by a mimetic hive mind that is literally eating their reality apart because of how tenuous and pathetic it is. Same thing goes for all these other aspects here that we see. So you see people peeling away. You see Hispanics moving towards Trump. You see blacks moving towards Trump more than ever before. Independents are moving towards Trump more than ever before, the more he's persecuted. Because there's something that's just viscerally clear to people, that when you go to the lengths of having all these indictments and these dumb trials with all these Democrat donor-connected prosecutors and judges, it's so obvious that this is a naked power play. But their game is built on what some people call soft power, but is in reality, in an anthropological sense, just Christ-haunted power. They're trying to play the game of being the aggrieved, never do anything wrong, little victims, trying to help women, trying to help the weak people, trying to help the poor little Ukrainians as they murder them in cold blood to the tune of hundreds of thousands sick. Same thing in Gaza, same thing in all these other places. Oh, we're concerned about the Gazans, Biden says, as he keeps sending the weapons. Same with Chuck Schumer. Oh, we care about the plight of the minority, as he keeps sending these horrible continuations of horrible destruction against these people. It's all tenuous, fabricated nonsense, and it's all being revealed. And because Trump's aesthetic is that of being a winner and holding on to that, even though he says he's being unfairly targeted, it reveals the lie and the trick of this Christ-haunted playbook that these people are holding on to. They go for a soft power approach. We just happen to be doing justice. And it looks more and more like a direct hard power, which ruins the power of their narrative. Their whole narrative is convincing people that they really are just do-gooder, kind people. But it's losing its effect the more it comes undone. So I think that one of the things you'll see, like the mugshot, one of the most celebrated part of Trump's whole campaign so far was his mugshot, which would normally be in normal society a sign of shame. If you're trying to be a politician or an upwardly mobile person in some kind of Hollywood or some business or industry of reputation, to get a mugshot is a sign of shame. And now he's turned it into a sign of power because they don't buy it. The more you persecute, the more the stone appears to be rejected, the more it becomes the cornerstone. They're trying to take his money. They're suing him because he says something rude about a psychopath lady who accuses them of nonsense, trying to take his properties. Every time they do this, it gives him more power. The best thing he could ask for if he wants to become beyond just a president, but a living icon for decades and decades and decades afterwards. He'll be living in the memory of shaping what happened with this, is for them to take Trump Tower. Take it. Let them take it. Let them put him in prison. He becomes more powerful. The trials, the longer they go, reveal the frivolity and the naked abuse that is the justice system of America. It reveals the naked abuse of stealing property in America. Civil asset forfeiture is a daily let's steal Trump Tower event that happens to people all over the place in America who don't have the reputation and the power symbolically that Trump has. It reveals the pettiness of the justice system, how stacked it is. When they want to get you, they'll put you in the right judge in the right district to get the right jury. They'll withhold evidence. They corrupt evidence. They taint evidence, as the FBI has admitted to doing, where they're changing documents and fiddling with what's in the actual boxes that they allegedly took from Mar-a-Lago. All of that naked, nihilistic, grimy, disgusting, revolting, sneaky little weasel form of power gets revealed. And the public just has a visceral rejection of power that's weaselly like that. They prefer power. The public likes tyrants and psychopaths. That's clear. But they don't want to believe that they're liking it. They want to be romanced. They want to believe in the delusional nonsense and the trappings of, we're doing this just for the blind pursuit of justice because no one is above the law. They want to believe that's real. They want to believe that fantasy is real when they're told to go along with arming Ukraine to the very last Ukrainian is gone. They want to believe that they're being told to do that because they really are helping a plucky little underdog in some good faith effort. They want to believe in that. And the more that all of those narratives fall apart, the more their sense of fidelity, of trust, of faithfulness to the whole charade of this regime becomes shaken at its foundation. So they see that, and I believe that this would be the undoing of a lot of things. Right now, their power exists by this weaselly attempt to surveil people in the name of fighting off evil that they never, ever fight off. They say the establishment government says that they're concerned about, human trafficking, and yet they let millions flow in with all kinds of trafficking going on at the border and around the world. Look at what they did in Afghanistan with the young boys there. So what do they know about it? They don't know anything truthful in what they say. It's all a lie. And so when they say, we get to surveil you because we're trying to stop trafficking or terrorism, all that, well, they're arming Al-Qaeda, and they did in Syria. They armed the terrorists all over the place. They armed and supported Hamas. Israel and America did. People don't buy their lying, psychopathic, weaselly behavior. They'd almost want more direct, honest attempts at power structure grabbing and power grabbing than they want to have this weaselly little, I'm just a little victim. I'm just here to present the little slain lambs of the world. No, you're not. And we all see through it. And the people who are the most hardcore, who believe in this, the most neurotic and insane among us, are going to continue to twist their minds up into a state of a mental pretzel of insanity. God help them, because it's millions of people still. And it's these, particularly their biggest base is single women who, refuse to, accept reality and live in this fantasy of this narcissistic delusion. And they're going to miss out on motherhood, miss out on having family, miss out on true family and companionship and community, chasing after these paper-thin fake jobs, these fake meaningless paper-pushing jobs, these meaningless attempts to get prestige through social media jockeying. All this stuff is nonsense. This is what the regime wants you to feed your mind into. It goes nowhere but hell on earth. And they're the ones who are continually propping up the arms dealers, the drug dealers and the CIA, the surveillance people, the people who are psychopaths who make money off of war, who are predating the poor, who are destroying their purchasing power of the Federal Reserve System. It's these emotionally manipulated women voters that tend to be the biggest block of support for all of the worst violence that's done in the name of mostly men and their harem of women at the top of the society. Those are the people who are the useful idiots at the best core. Now, the right is just as much of a useful idiot in its own way, but who is in the best driver's seat of all this stuff It's these people who have been lied to and have been told and emotionally manipulated that they present this narrative that they're on the side of the weak ones, when in fact they're on the side of the greatest psychopaths the world has ever seen. But it's all being exposed. So I believe that the power and aura of being indicted will be lessened when Trump's experience is over with this. I believe that the aura of a mugshot has been lessened and will continue to be lessened in terms of its severity of being expunged from society, of being expelled from polite society. Because when you stick the president, former president of the United States, into a mugshot, the high priest, when you're running the mugshot shame effect on the former high priest of the whole machine, it ruins the aura of its shame effect. When you run the president, who is the former high priest of the whole machine, through indictments and rigged trials and gagging him, threatening to gag him, all of that does is it ruins that aura of the severity of the shame of that ritual for the rest of the public going forward. It defangs the state. While they're using these overreach tactics, it's defanging the teeth. Think of the teeth as being filed down right now in real time by overreaching in their attempt to expel Trump, because they don't understand anthropology. These people are not intelligent. They're not bright. They're not wise. They're not cunning. They're very low information. Let's put it that way. Let's be nice, right? So they're not understanding what I'm teaching you. They're so hubristically bothered by this person's aesthetic that they will do anything, including ruining their very power system itself and their culture allure. Because people see that they're not Boy Scouts, so to speak. They're not kind little angels trying to help the victims. They're actually the biggest perpetrators of death, murder, killing, stealing, and destroying of the poor and the planet ever. They are, I'm talking about the oligarchs and the institutions and the bureaucracies that support this whole Western nonsense. They don't do these things with blind justice. They do justice attacks, usually for their own psychopath oligarch friends. Okay. The FDA is nothing but a sacrificial bludgeon for the establishment of big pharma and all of its big food friends to go after and protect their racket. Same with all the other institutions. Okay. These are sacrificial attacks on freedom that are designed to, they're designed to be hidden by the appearance of being above the fray, sterile bureaucracies that are just trying to follow the facts, ma'am, just trying to follow the science, just trying to take care of you. The COVID thing, by the way, exposed a lot of their sociopathy and blind insanity and violent desires as well. So all of this stuff is going to ruin the power of the state. It's defanging its bite as we speak. And it will continue to ruin the aura and fear and shame effect of being indicted, of being arrested, of having a mugshot, of going to prison, getting a conviction. All that stuff is weakening the fidelity that we have held about these institutions being legit and being things to be shamed by. How can you be shamed by something which is utterly shameless and pathetic and a joke morally, ethically? How can you be shamed by that? And society's going to have to wake up to that. How can you be shamed by institutions that hate the poor, that hate the drug addicted, that hate the elderly, they hate children, they hate families, they hate life, they hate minorities, they hate white people, they hate women, they hate men, they hate people who have gender confusion, they hate them all. Because when you are in the service of murder, killing, stealing, and that, you are consumed by hate. In a system that mimetically feeds off of that energy, the more it's revealed, the more it puts the attention onto us to look in the mirror and say, wait a second, what does this say about me and my belief and participation in this society and its groupthink narratives? Maybe I need to rethink a lot of the ways in which I have placed blame onto my neighbor unfairly over the years. So this is a fascinating experience. people are always ruled by fear. I'm afraid of surveillance of my phone. I'm afraid of what they can do, put me in prison. I'm afraid of what they can do to shame me, make me lose my job. Look at how when they banned him, remember after he was ousted from office, they tried to do a full circle ban, banning him from all the different platforms, banning him from posting the PGA, all access to banks. I mean, he was supposed to be completely sacrificed. And what did it do? It backfired there. And it ended up creating a huge market appetite to the point where Twitter and other platforms have emerged to provide at least some level of free discourse back on the internet. So it backfired royally because the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. And the more you perceive something to be unfairly rejected by the establishment, the more it becomes a cornerstone, meaning it becomes the lodestone. It becomes this irresistible aura that you want to support. So the more they do this to Trump, the more he will get support. If they screw him out of the election, if he wins fairly and they rig it, or they put him in prison, he'll become more powerful than anything you could possibly imagine in terms of a symbolic figure. And the worst thing he has going for him is that he and some of his followers do like to talk about mimicking their raw grasp at power, which kind of ruins the effect of the Cornerstone Effect to some degree. But the more he can downplay that and truly maybe move away from that attitude of you wait till I get it, I'm going to do all these things back at you guys and get revenge, that ruins some of the effect of the Cornerstone Effect. And then the little Caesars on the right that want to act like they're a little tough guy like Trump. These guys are 5'2". They want to, act like, oh, I'm a little mini Trump in the waiting. I'm going to be a little Caesar one day. I want to take power and do all the same things the left does to us. That looks so weak and pathetic. Looks like a little barking chihuahua that's, stuck in a tree and scared out of its mind as a Rottweiler's growling at it. And they're saying, oh, you wait till I get my power. I'm going to get you. It's like, it's so pathetic. Nobody believes it. It's the worst thing. This little new right garbage. That will do nothing to help anything. It's just slowing down any kind of dissolution of all these oligarchic power establishments in the first place. But nevertheless, the Cornerstone Effect is more powerful than those little things that kind of keep the steady status quo going. So that's it for this episode, folks. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed. Also follow me at David Gornoski on Twitter.